Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of my motorcycle restoration channel. In this video I'm going to be putting all the front brake lines on, bolting them all up, bleeding the brakes and basically getting the front brakes to work, which is fantastic because this seems to have dragged on for so long now. I've also finally made that link pipe that I've been whittering on about in just about every video I've made up to now, so you'll be all pleased about that and relieved, which I am. Should have done it in the first place. I haven't filmed me making any of that, to be honest, or not a long film anyway. So what I'll let you do is, I'll give you a quick glimpse of what I've been up to over the last few days. So that's the brake pipe I was fiddling around with and making, and that was a quick glimpse at the banjo bolts that I've plated and everything, so they're done. So I'll get cracking on and putting it all on, let you guys watch. We've got one of the front brake pipe mounting brackets here. I'm going to get this put onto the swing arm and get this nipped up first of all. Got a locating lip just on the top that sits on the top of the fork. And there's another little edge here that should be pushed up into the fork so it can't move when you tighten that bolt up with the brake pipe on. I'm going to take the front brake pipe. This is the joint piece that then links over to the other side, so I'm going to feed this up to the top. Try and zoom out a bit here for you. So. Like I said before, we're going to warm this up just so the paint doesn't crack off. Now you'll remember the brake pipe that I was going to plate the ends on and everything else. Well, there's the new one. It's a very odd shape, but that's how it's supposed to be. That's got nice new ends on now. So we've got the bracket here now for the opposite side. This is on the near side, and that bolts on in the same place, totally different style of bracket, but that one sits on there. So we're going to get that bolted up on there. Now this is the other piece of brake pipe. This is a short piece. That goes up through there. Right, so I've put the bracket on both sides now, and as you can see, brake line's on here. We've got that nice new crossover piece on there. The next thing I need to do is, there's this big rubber grommet spacer thing here, this lump of rubber. There's a little bracket that we got ready a while ago. That needs to slip over there now. We're going to warm it up so we don't crack it, so we've got to force it open a bit. I've just put a little bit of the vegetable oil on there so this slips on, and then that bolts up to the bottom. You can't quite see that, but that bolts on to the bottom of the bottom yoke. Again, quick warm up. And again, you can see we've got the olive drab finish on this. Got to make sure we get this in the right orientation to how it goes. So I'm going to feed this back up to the top. I'm very careful not to scratch anything. So I've got that on. I'm not going to actually bolt it to the bottom yoke until the top banjo bolt is fastened to the master cylinder. The last thing you want to do is fasten that up and then realise that when you put that on, it's all under strain. So the hose is all nice and loose at the minute. We'll fasten it to the top master cylinder. Once that's fastened on, we know that's in the right place, then we'll tighten that up and then nothing's strained or under any tension. So at this side, we're going to connect the bottom hose, brake hose here, with the freshly plated, see if that can focus. It's not going to focus, is it? There you go. So what we're going to do is, as usual, some people may say you shouldn't, some say you should, but this way it's a steel bolt into aluminium, so there's always a possibility of corrosion. So we just put a little bit on the, only a little bit, and I'm squishing that into all the threads there. Only a little bit. Nice new sealing washers. These are the plated type. So if you're gonna rebuild your brakes and you're doing sort of like a proper restoration, you can use plain copper washers, copper sealing washers. I do have a box of them somewhere. There we go. You can use something like that from Halfords or wherever. Now the problem is we're using those is that over time the finish will go off on them, like your copper pipes in the house. It goes really dull. If you buy these plated ones, the genuine ones, they are expensive. Sorry, that's all that yellow on my finger ends there is off the plating tank from the olive drab that I've just been doing. I've been trying to do something else while I'm doing this. If you buy the, sorry, I'll go back onto subject. If you buy the proper ones, yes, they're expensive. I think they're a couple of quid each, unless you get some from another place called David Silver Spares. They actually do some replica ones that they've had played. Again, I think they're still a quid each, but they'll stay looking like that. They won't go off. So, pop your first one over there. Pop that through the pop that through the end of your brake hose. Then you want another sealing washer on the back side of that. And be careful not to scratch anything. Start to screw that in. Make sure you don't cross thread it or anything like that. It should go in nicely just with your fingers. Make sure that that little neck of the end of the brake hose is in the slot in the caliper. There's a special slot so you can't get it in the wrong place. Doesn't want to be sticking out over it. It's got to be up there like that. Now check the torque settings for these. The torque settings for these are 29 Newton meters, thereabouts, give or take a little bit. There's a little wiggle room in the settings. So we're going to torque these up now. Again, being very careful not to scratch the finish. When you bring it back, don't let it jump. There we go, that's that one torqued up. So we've got that torqued up now. Just need to nip this brake pipe up. Here, I'm tapping that you can't see. Unfortunately, what you haven't seen at the other side, the bottom banjo bolt I've already tightened up. This nut here, I've already tightened that up at the other side, but unfortunately the camera died on the battery died on the camera and I didn't notice, so I apologise for that. But yeah, the other side's all tightened up and done. So we've tightened the bottom banjo bolt up, all this bracket's tight here, so we'll just nip this up. Use the correct spanner as well, proper brake spanner, because if you don't, if you just use an open-ended spanner, chances are it'll start to round those corners off. Open-ended spanners, they're okay, but they're only there for difficult, hard to reach places where you can't get a full ring spanner on. So with brake pipes, always use a proper brake spanner, because it pretty much goes all the way around. And with this, you just want to get it to the point where it starts to bite, which is there, and then and about there. No marks, perfect. Next job is the top banjo bolt. Now what I haven't shown on camera is, because that can go anywhere like this, trying to find the best position for it, you don't really know where it goes. So what I've done is, all the front screen brace that goes on here, all at the front, that holds all the clocks, I've actually quickly mounted that on to make sure this doesn't catch any of the instruments or anything like that. So at the minute, anywhere in that sort of space it can go, so it's wherever it fits the nicest. So I'd say around about there. Again, a tiny bit of copper slip on. It's got two new sealing washers at either side, and it's the bolt that I've just plated. You might have to just hold it there to stop it rotating. Luckily, got away without marking it. So that's the front brake pipes on. All the joints are fastened up as tight as I think they need to be. We'll test them once we've got brake fluid in there and that's all bled through. We'll squeeze the brakes on and we'll go around all the joints to make sure there's no leaks or anything like that. But at the moment I think they're nipped up as much as they need to be. So we'll get on and put some brake fluid in it. If you remember, I didn't fully tighten all this up because obviously it needed fluid in. So we're going to quickly whip that off and we're going to start putting some brake fluid in it. So I filled the reservoir full of brake fluid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a mini vac. It's like a vacuum system. What we'll do is I've connected a hose onto the bleed nipple, connected to the container, where hopefully brake fluid is going to flow out of there into the container, and there's a vacuum pump on the end. Great system. Problem is with the bike stuff, the bleed nipples on bikes are so small that this is set up for large nipples on cars and stuff, and I've never ordered the kit for it for the bikes. Don't know why, seeing as all I've ever done with it is bikes rather than cars. If it all goes according to plan, it works fantastic. It's far quicker than squeezing the brake lever continuously. It will just, as soon as I open the bleed, I'll create some vacuum first. Once we've got some vacuum created on the gauge, I'll open the bleed nipple ever so much, a tiny little bit, so I can't get my words out tonight. I'll open the bleed nipple a tiny little bit, and you should see after a while, it'll take a bit of doing because it's full of air. Eventually it will start to suck brake fluid out. Whilst we're doing this, we need to keep a careful eye, make sure that the brake reservoir at the top stays full of brake fluid, because if it doesn't, and you're not watching that, that'll empty, and then you'll just be sucking more air into the system. So always remember to keep an eye on what's going on up there. So I'll move the camera, show you down here, and try and show you what I'm going to do. This is a vacuum pump. It's supposed to be a one-handed operation, but to be honest, I find this tin of copper grease that I have seems to be perfect for resting it on. So turn it to vacuum, not pressure. Right, you want a fair bit of vacuum on that. Now what I'm going to do is, we'll open this. There we go, straight away, look. Don't know if you can see that. We've got brake fluid coming straight into the pipe already. So we're just going to nip it off there because we're running out of vacuum. And hopefully what you can see there is you can actually see the coloured brake fluid. You can see bubbles coming out. That's because this is leaking some air there. What we do is now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to the other side now, because you've got this link pipe over to the other side and that's full of air, so we've got to go around to the other side now. Now we've got brake fluid coming down into the pistons and into here. We've now got to go to the other side and do it at the other side. Drag around there so you don't get brake fluid everywhere. The other problem at the minute is it's so cold in here. The pipe's rock hard, and all it wants to do is every time I move this, it's just wanting to pull it off, and you can hear the vacuum disappearing. In the middle of summer when this is all nice and soft, this works a treat. But like I say, it's still, I think, 0 degrees outside, so everything's a bit stiff. There we have it, working front brakes, finally. So that's the front brakes done, finally. So they're all working, I've checked for leaks, everything's alright. My only wish is that that link pipe that like I say, I've waited on about forever, I just wish, really, looking back, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Should have just made a new one to start with, because it would have saved a whole heap of time and effort, but it's part of a restoration, you always try and save what you've got. I tried to save it, turned out it was easier, just new one. Next job is going to be the back brakes. They shouldn't take anywhere near as long because there's no pipes to make. The brake hose is already painted as you've seen in a previous video. The brake caliper's already painted. Everything's done. I've got a couple of bolts to plate an olive drab, and apart from that, it's a simple case of, or should it, well, hopefully, it's a simple case of bolt it all together and we should have some working back brakes. So if you like this video, please feel free to leave a comment, and please hit the notification bell and please subscribe. Cheers guys.